By the middle of December 1944, most of the men running the war in Europe had quietly started planning for what came after it. Germany was finished, or close enough, and the front had stalled right at the German border, which is exactly why almost nobody was watching a stretch of thick, hilly forest along the border of Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. Allied planners used it as a rest stop. Somewhere worn-out divisions recovered, and green divisions got their first taste of combat without much risk. Roughly 83,000 American troops were spread across 85 miles of that front. It was an unlocked back door, and one man had been staring at it for months. Hitler's plan was audacious, bordering on delusional, and his own generals told him so almost word for word. Punch 3 armies through the Ardennes, race 100 miles to the port of Antwerp, and split the British forces in the north from the Americans in the south before either side could react. The same maneuver that had knocked France out of the war back in 1940. Punch 3 armies through the Ardennes, race 100 miles to the port of Antwerp, and split the British forces in the north from the Americans in the south before either side could react. The same maneuver that had knocked France out of the war back in 1940. His generals raised every obvious problem. Antwerp was too far, the fuel wasn't there, the odds were close to impossible. He overruled all of it and threw in everything Germany had left in the West. Roughly 410,000 men, over 1,400 tanks, and 2,600 artillery pieces. There was one problem no amount of willpower could fix. The Germans only carried enough fuel to get about 90 miles. The whole plan depended on capturing American gasoline along the way. What made it work at first was total surprise. Weeks of bad weather grounded Allied reconnaissance, and German units moved only at night, under strict radio silence. There were warning signs. One American intelligence officer flagged a serious buildup and was mostly ignored, and on the very morning the attack began, a senior Allied commander wrote that the enemy was in no shape to launch a major offensive. He was wrong by about 12 hours. At 5:30 that morning, over 2,000 German guns opened up along the entire front. Searchlights bounced off low clouds to fake moonlight across the snow, and armored columns pushed through terrain nobody expected them to use. An inexperienced American division got 2 regiments completely encircled within days, and by December 19th, roughly 7,000 of them had gone into German captivity, the largest mass surrender of American troops anywhere in the European war. Then came the moment that changed the emotional temperature of the whole battle. Near a crossroads called Malmedy, a fast-moving SS column captured a group of American artillery observers caught on the wrong road. What happened to them in that snow-covered field became one of the war's most infamous episodes. Most never made it home, and a handful survived only by staying motionless in the snow or bolting for the tree line. Word of it spread fast through American lines, and it did the opposite of what German commanders wanted. Instead of fear, it produced fury that followed the German advance for the rest of the battle. Underneath the chaos, the German timetable was already falling apart, held together entirely by men holding ground they were never supposed to hold. In the north, 2 American divisions, one barely tested in combat before this, dug into a ridge and, backed by heavy artillery, stopped an elite German armored division cold no matter how many times it attacked. The drive toward Antwerp died on that ridge and never recovered. Further south, a small armored division turned an unremarkable road junction into a fortress the Germans needed within a single day and didn't take for 4 more. 4 days historians now treat as one of the quiet turning points of the whole battle because they bought the Allies time the original plan never accounted for. That time got used. With phone lines cut and half the front in chaos, command of the northern armies was temporarily handed to a different general, a call that infuriated the officer who lost it but proved right. Further south, the Allied Supreme Commander asked one general, famous for moving fast and expecting the impossible from his own staff, how quickly he could redirect an entire army toward the fighting. The answer came back almost instantly: 3 divisions in 48 hours. Turning 250,000 men 90 degrees on frozen roads in the worst winter Europe had seen in decades was supposed to take weeks. His staff had started drafting the plan before the meeting even finished. None of that mattered as much as what was happening at a small Belgian town where 7 major roads converged. Whoever held it controlled the whole region, and the airborne division sent to hold it found itself completely surrounded within days. Dug into frozen ground well below zero, running low on ammunition and medical supplies, wounded men laid out in basements without nearly enough blankets or morphine. Outnumbered roughly 5-1, with no relief in sight, the defenders received a written demand: surrender the town or face total destruction. The American general in charge read it, laughed, and gave a one-word answer the Germans had to have translated for them. It survived as one of the most quoted lines of the war. A single syllable that captured exactly how little that surrounded, freezing garrison intended to give up. The next day, the weather, which had done more for the German attack than any tank, finally broke. Allied aircraft filled the sky for the first time in a week, dropping supplies into the besieged town and tearing into German columns across the Ardennes. The furthest German spearhead got within a few miles of the Meuse River before running completely dry on Christmas Eve, and an American armored division caught it there and ended its advance for good. The river was never crossed. Antwerp was never even close. 2 days later, an armored column broke through and reached the besieged town, ending a 5-day siege. Allied forces then squeezed the bulge in the map from both directions until, by late January, the front line sat almost exactly where it had stood 6 weeks earlier, as if none of it had happened, except for what it cost to get there. And what it cost was enormous. American casualties topped 80,000, with close to 20,000 men lost outright, and tens of thousands more taken prisoner, plus thousands more pulled off the line by frostbite. German losses ran somewhere between 67,000 and 100,000. This single 6-week battle accounted for roughly 1 in every 10 American combat casualties of the entire war, but the real damage wasn't on the map. Every tank, every gallon of fuel, and every experienced soldier Germany threw into the Ardennes was gone for good, right as the Soviets launched a massive new offensive in the east with nothing left in reserve to meet it. Churchill later called it the greatest battle fought by American arms in the war. After the Ardennes, the question was never whether Germany would lose, only how many months it had left. The answer turned out to be 4. What's strange, looking back, is how much of the outcome came down to things that had nothing to do with tanks or air power. A Ridge 2 divisions refused to give up. A road junction held 4 days longer than it should have been possible to hold, and one word typed on a piece of paper by a surrounded general who had every reason to say something else. If you had to guess which small, stubborn decision changes the next major turning point in history, would you even recognize it while it was happening? Let us know which part of this story you'd want us to go deeper on, and subscribe if you want to be here when we do.